What up, anybody, and welcome to another episode of the SVR Podcast. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, today we have one of the familiar road wrestlers from 2K17. Mostly, he used to be relevant on different feds, and he made a faction himself called Silent Bullets, which a lot of people been asking themselves, why is this guy making a rep-off version of Bullet Club? Well, it's not even a rep-off version, but the name, it's different. So it doesn't mean it's like a copycat whatsoever. Anyway, so today we're gonna interview.
I could go if you wanted. The reason people even say ripoff is because of the logo. If I didn't use the Bullet Club head, then nobody would say that. That's the only reason why people say that.
Yeah, and today, guys, we are gonna interview with the leader of Silent Bullets, the one and only, the Slump God, RevoluciousZark. What up, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Alright, so you know what you're doing, right, Zark?
Of course.
Yeah. I'm gonna do it again and again. So, there are two things that you're gonna do, or you don't want to do. First thing is, if you want to keep going through your whole story thing of how you express it through your pro wrestling career, you gotta do fully keep going. Or the second, you might do the short list if you're tired of, enough to talk really a lot about your career for some reason. So it's like talk less. Anyway, without even ado, let's jump into it. First question: how did you get into the pro wrestling career? How it went from start to now?
Okay, I got into pro wrestling around 2011, and it started by me just being a kid and liking professional wrestling in real life. And like I said, I discovered Roblox through a friend of mine that I was friends with at school and shit. And me still being new to Roblox, I would search up wrestling games to play because of my real life wrestling interest. And eventually I found this game called SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. And the guy who made it, his name was Tyler Finn or The Flying or some shit. But that's, how I introduced to pro wrestling, because back then, it was still the clean tool that you see now, but it wasn't as fully developed or not nearly as popular.
I mean, back then, it wasn't even reaching.
Back then, it had this problem though. Whenever you swung the clean, you would jump a bit. But me being new and shit, I didn't think anything of it. But my original name back then was some edgy, weird username. I believe it was W Zone Barrett or some shit. Anyways, but the Barrett part was in there because I had my favorite wrestler at the time was Wade Barrett, right? And this was around the time that Nexus was a big thing and shit. So that was my first gimmick,
And now I believe right now you're working on a rope boxing fed, from what I heard.
Oh yeah. It's a completely new roboxing genre based on cleans. I mean, there's been roboxing feds that used cleans before, but not like this. I took it to a whole new level.
Damn. Next question. What are your future plans? Have you been actually planned one in your mind? If yes, then can you tell me what you have planned so far in the future?
Yeah. If I've already mm, told a bunch of my friends, but my plans right now, as of right now, are to make a whole new row martial arts community and a whole new row combat sport community, and I'm planning on mixing the two together to make a whole new fucking genre of just fucking row combat sports and row martial arts, and I want them to blend together, you know.
Yeah, next question. Now, this one is particularly about your perspective of what you have seen these five people from different jams, from different federations that you have seen so far. You're feeling like they have talent, they have ability, and they make enjoyable matches. So the question is, what is your top five greatest role wrestling superstar in your opinion by the ability, skills, and the enjoyment?
The fifth one, I'd have to go with one of my best friends. Is he was actually the first member of Silent Bullets. His name's Vince Wilson.
Vince Wilson.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about him, and if they do, it's because of me and Silent Bullets. I'm not like trying to like undermine him or anything, or kind of. I'm not trying to like flex an ego or anything, but what makes me say that is I wrestled a lot of people, but Vince, you know, like he was a person that I taught. You know what I'm saying? I was the one that got him into row wrestling, like heavy, heavy. Like I was the one that got him all the world titles that he's ever had. But what ultimately makes me say that is I've thought Vince a lot. He's been like my main training partner. But the thing is, Vince is like the best defensive pro wrestler I've ever seen. Like, I can't name another person that has the ability to counter swing and has his kind of movement. Nobody else does it like him, you know. But the thing about him though is he just doesn't like to train, and he didn't take his own skill seriously, in so he's kind of like wasted all his potential in a way, which sucks to see, you know, because that's my friend. Like I want to see him succeed, but you know, it's like he didn't have the drive to wrestle anymore, which I understand because he did it a lot. So, but number four, let me think. Number four, I'd probably have to say Isaac. If you know who that is,
Isaac Mercury.
Yeah, Isaac Mercury, and he was another one of my training partners. Back in the day, around like 2019 ish. Me, him, and Mike and Lim would like close friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we would train together a lot. And Isaac was like a tough dude. You know, like he was pretty damn good. And he was just as good as Mike was, and through Mike and him was I actually able to become as good as I was. Which, you know, of course I was just as good as they were, but I have them to thank for that, you know. Which brings me to number three. Of course, it's Mike MLM, you know, because he's all like the reach god and shit. Which that's actually where my nickname comes from, you know, because Mike had his little thing like the reach god shit, and I'm thinking, ooh, well, I want something like that. So that's where the Slump God came from, you know. Which like I didn't have no like distinct trait or special feature about myself like having reach and shit. But what I did have was my skill and my ability to, you know, come out on top. You know what I'm saying? And win convincingly, you know. So that's where the slump part came from, you know, because when you fuck somebody up, they get slumped, right? You know. Number two, I could give this one to anybody, but fuck. Number two, probably have to say Eddie Slayer. You know, because I was actually back in the day around like 2015, whenever I used to go to a bunch of indie feds and shit. There was this one fed called RWWE, and the person who that owned it was like Roblox Daniel Bryan or some shit, and he was in that fed, and he would do like some, I think it was Brock Lesnar or Dean Ambrose or something. I forget the gimmick he did, but we was in a faction together. It was a Phantom Vortex, you know. People who were around back then, they know what I'm talking about, and I knew him from that, and but at the time I wasn't as good as I became, you know. So he would beat the shit out of me every time I tried to fight him. But the thing is, like, whenever I did get into my prime, like, that's when I never saw, like, that's when I never saw Eddie Slayer ever again. He didn't want to fight me after that, which was kind of sucked for me, you know, because I would have liked to seen how that would have turned out, but, you know, we never got to see it. But, which brings me to my first one. I could just be egotistical and say me, but I'm not going to do that. If I did have to give it to anybody, probably have to be Raheem Dinero. Which, I'm not sure if, you know, people listening to this are going to know who that is, but, you know, if they're, like, very well into the wrestling community, like, they should know who that is. But, Raheem, like, I mean, I wouldn't say he's the best of all time, but I'll give him number one because of his accomplishments and how relevant he was able to get, you know, because he was one of the higher ups in APRW, and that's actually how I was able to get into APRW was through Raheem, you know, and they handed me this gimmick. It was Leo Dinero, and I got to join his little faction called Dinero Dynasty or Dinero Family or some shit like that. But that was his son, you know, that was the gimmick that we ran with. But and it didn't go on for very long, you know, because I had personal shit get in the way, so I couldn't take my APRW career and make it into anything because I had a lot more important stuff to worry about. But yeah.
Next question. What's next for the Slump God Zark?
Well, I'm definitely not gonna wrestle anymore. Like, that's over with. Like, I've said this before. I retired in 2020 after I won my final championship, and that was the final curtain call. I'm never coming back. That was it. But what's next is it's like I said, I'm trying to work on a brand new Raw martial arts and Raw combat sports community, and I want to merge them into the same community because it's never been done before. There hasn't been like a Raw MMA group and a Raw boxing group and a Raw kickboxing group, a part of the same community that had tools and things that each made them unique, but yet they blended together. You know what I'm saying? And nobody's ever made a Raw martial arts groups that could be translated into actual Raw MMA groups. You know, like, you can't name one karate group where you could use the skills that you got in that Raw karate group to take to like a Raw MMA group or some shit. Like, you've never seen it, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Next question. What was your biggest title that you have won in Raw wrestling history?
The biggest one, probably have to say that time I won the RWE Intercontinental title. This was actually around the time where Silent Bullets was popping, and at the time, my name was LeonardoAlpin, and my gimmick name was Leon Rhodes, the Scottish Nightmare, and I was like the most hated heel in Raw wrestling at the time, because people did not like me. Dude, like, pretty much the only people that were my friends were like the Fed owners, if that, you know, because even the Feds I went to didn't like me. And you know, if you weren't in Silent Bullets, people pretty much just didn't like me, and that's how it was. Which, I did a good job of being a heel though, but then held on to the title for a hot minute and defended it 3-4 times or some shit.
Next question is particularly curiosity about, how you made the Silent Bullets itself, as, it was your idea, by the way. But the next question is, how did you create a faction called Silent Bullets? Like, what made you making it?
Alright, but to tell you the whole story, I'm gonna go back to like the beginning from where I started, and then it's like I said, I've been pro wrestling since 2011, and I retired in 2020 after I won my final championship. And I started Silent Bullets like somewhere around 2018 after a long break that I took from pro wrestling. Which, truth be told, I was actually in that long break. I started this. I helped start this boxing fed called GBF, and they hated pro wrestling, so like that's the reason why I took a long break from it. But eventually, I quit. I quit that fed, because I was the vice president. But whenever I got back into pro wrestling around that time, 2018, I was an older guy, because I've been pro wrestling since 2011, so I was kind of an older guy, like an old generation wrestler trying to find my way into this newer pro wrestling community with all these new gens that I didn't know a whole lot about. You know what I'm saying? And whenever I did pro wrestle, I was used to federations like RCW, RWU, TNX, ORW, like older feds like that. I didn't know much about the newer feds that got started while I was taking a break. So I'm going to these newer gyms and meeting new people, but eventually I joined this one fed called DWF, which stands for Dallas Wrestling Federation, and I make quite a few friends at DWF, and I meet some cool new people. But the interesting part is I meet this guy named Zach Ashes, right? And he was a DWF Hall of Famer, right? And he asked me and my friend to be like his little club, like his little henchman, like how AJ Styles had Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, and like they had that, and like they had that, like their own little trio. So me wanting, to get closer to the higher ups and wanting to get pushed in DWF, like I agreed to it. And but what ended up happening is that trio became like a whole faction, right? And Zach was the leader of it, right? And he called it Ashes Club, right? And a lot of it was, and me, and having some of my older friends that I knew back in the day, like most of the members of Ashes Club were just me and my friends, like the majority of what took up Ashes Club was me and my friends. So they joined Ashes Club because of me, right? And like every time, like me and Zach, and the rest of the Ashes Club would like be at a fed or some shit, like I'd be the favorite, instead of Zach or some shit, or cheering for like the whole club in general. Like they would legit just cheer for me instead. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I said, they joined his faction because of me, right? But and we only went to like 2-3 feds. It was like I think we went to DWF and like some other indie fed, but it wasn't the part where I got kind of burnt out on Ashes Club. Was we was heading to the shows with Zach for quite a while, but like we wasn't seeing any progress. Like we was just kind of elevating him, I didn't see any title shots. I didn't see us hold any titles. I didn't see us like get any individual screen time or any of that. So eventually I'm like, hey, I don't want to be at Ash's club anymore, right? And of course, Zach had like a big issue with that, which I don't see why. Like I just wanted to leave his club, but I didn't see the big deal. Like when you have a faction, what you need to realize is that members are expendable. Like they can always be replaced. You know what I'm saying? Which I mean, he probably thought I was special, which in that case I see why. But at the same time, there wasn't anybody he couldn't have replaced me with. Because I was rusty and shit still. Just I was still getting back into wrestling, so I definitely wasn't as good as I was, or definitely wasn't as good. What do you know? That's when Silent Bullets gets made.
Alright, next question. What are the 2 things you would like to change about yourself?
Right now, it's my shitty internet, because my internet like makes my ping like high as fuck, and it's harder for me to do stuff like Roblox and all that. And the second thing is a better PC, so I can have like a higher FPS.
Okay, next question. Now, I know you guys have a lot of delicious foods in your country, but what's your favorite food that you have been eating?
Burritos. It's like every time I go grocery shopping, like I pay for these burritos that you put in the microwave and heat up and shit. And like they're cheap and they're pretty good, so I like eating them and shit.
It has that little bit of, adding some good elements into it, like basically, I think meat.
The burrito itself, it's legit just beef and beans. That's it. But how it's that good, so I just like eating it.
Next question. Now, basically, it's particularly when it was smaller, you used to watch different programs or cartoons, and you might not remember them correctly. Like they were exist, but you forgot they were there at some point. But the question is, what's your favorite cartoon that you have watched?
I really liked anime as a kid, which I still like anime now. But but the anime is that I was like shit, like Dragon Ball Z. Like that's especially, I was a big Dragon Ball Z fan, and there's this other anime called Metabots, which I don't think too many people that listen to this are gonna know about that. But I thought Metabots was like Pokemon in a way, but except the robots like wasn't like in a ball or nothing. They would just kind of walk around and talk and shit, and it'd be funny. And another cartoon I liked was Beyblade. I like how like the little things would spin around and shit, and like knock into each other. I like the show though. That's why I like to play with the toys a lot, just because I like the show.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. And the final question of the day before we can wrap it up. Do you were satisfied with your pro wrestling run or your career?
Both, because there wasn't anything that I didn't accomplish. Everything that I wanted to accomplish like happened. You know what I'm saying? I won over 100 titles, and I won titles in big feds and was able to beat top tier people, and I became like one of the most famous people in wrestling at the time, and I made like some of the best selling wrestling attires with silent bullets and shit. Like people don't know this, but I've made thousands on top of thousands of Robux just from selling silent bullets attires, which has all been spent, by the way. Of course, I'm not like trying to act like I'm rich, because all that Robux has already been spent, but I was able to make like a bunch of attires that that I used personally, and I was able to be one of the best at promos and shit, and I was able to be friends with a lot of other famous people, you know, like Undead Brock and shit, like the people that were big back then, you know, when I was still trying to get my name out there, you know. But yeah, I'm definitely satisfied. You know, because I cemented myself as one of the best of all time, so I don't have nothing to complain about.
All right. That was it, folks. Zark, if you have anything to say to the outro or the end until we stop it right there, can you have it something on your chest to say?
Yeah. Thank you for having me on the podcast, man.
And I will see you guys in the next episode. Later.